Okay, so this film's really interesting. It sort of grounds itself in physics as we understand physics, but points to the fact that our perception of linear time, so going from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, isn't necessarily what is required for the mathematics and the science that we understand to make sense. You could just as easily experience time in reverse from our perspective, and all of the rules of physics would apply. And I think this is really interesting because A, it points to the malleability of time. B, it sort of suggests that the way that we experience time is not necessarily the truth of reality. It could very much be a human perception of time that we experience rather than an underlying rule. But what I want to say in addition to this construction of time and playing with forwards and backwards in this sort of a sci-fi context is that what if these rules of physics are actually less rigid than we think? When we, as scientists, look at reality, we see observable patterns and we see consistency. But who's to say that for all eternity, those rules are going to apply consistently? We see a pattern, but we've only looked at things for really a few hundred years in a lot of depth. All of the knowledge we have about atoms and quantum mechanics and the mathematics that shows us that time probably isn't fundamental. What if that's just how reality is appearing today? And by today I mean, 1,000 years. What if reality isn't actually fixed and all of our observations are just what reality happened to be doing when we observed it? When you look at something like quantum mechanics, the role of observation comes into play. Probability comes into play. Things don't seem as fixed and deterministic as we have assumed them to be, from Newtonian physics and, working out all the laws of the universe and just seeing that A creates B, creates C, cause and effect. There's more going on than that. And Tenet, one of the reasons I think it's such an interesting film is because it's even suggesting that cause and effect can be played with. What if cause is not always something in the past? What if you can flip things so that the future is actually influencing the present? And if I was to jump into the more spiritual domains here, this is certainly what seems to be the case. It seems like you can have contact experientially with something that feels like a version of you in an alternate reality, or a version of you in the future, or maybe even your higher self that has been with you in this linear journey through all of your incarnations, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but is coming at you from a perspective on life where time isn't fundamental and where past and present and future are all happening simultaneously, or rather than simultaneously, outside time, because time isn't the thing that we think it is. It's more of a construct than something that we're breaking rules around in order to have these experiences that seem confounding to us. But if we can just let go of the sense that time is static and fundamental and unbreakable, then some of this stuff starts to make a lot of sense. It makes sense that you have these intuitions and inspirations and these experiences of being guided by something that seems like it has a greater perspective on life than anything that you could have in the present moment. And that's central to this film's narrative. The idea is that A, our protagonist in the film is being guided by a version of himself that has more information than he does, and B, that our antagonist is being guided by a version of himself that has more information about the future than he does. And I think often when we have inspiration, when we feel moved by something beyond our own intelligence, beyond what we could think of conceptually from our intellect, there must be something going on that is beyond knowledge from the past, because all of our intellectual understanding and everything that we can create with AI, it's all based on analysis of the past and then applying it to the present. But what if through our state of consciousness, we can actually get access to intelligence that isn't limited by knowledge and isn't limited to the past? What if reality itself isn't limited to how it's appeared in the past? And what if reality itself is malleable? That's where we're going with consciousness expansion. We're not bending the laws, we're not breaking the laws, but we're no longer necessarily limited by what we thought was fixed. And we're seeing that our beliefs are malleable. And in the West, we have this very scientific, materialistic set of assumptions and beliefs about reality. We think we know how things work. We think everything is sorted. We think everything is exactly as we perceive it. I suspect that it's our observation, it's our engagement with reality that's making it mirror back to us in a way that's really scientifically stable and following the laws of physics. I think if we ourselves chilled out, got our heads out of the equation a little bit more, and were more open-minded, we would see that the universe is trying to answer our questions, and that the questions we ask the universe and that the assumptions we make about the universe shape how it appears back to us. So if we can expand our state of consciousness and still be grounded and have a scientific method, I think some of these paradoxes that we've thought are going to be unsolvable are going to be resolved. And we might see that there's more to life than what we thought a few hundred years ago. And ain't that the story of history? We're always saying that what we thought was the case, actually, not true. So embrace it. We don't know what's going on. It's way more truthful and intellectually honest to admit we don't know what's going on. We just have a good set of data that's been helpful so far in making technology. That's about all we got. See ya.